going on, guys? Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. I am Mitchell, and this is episode 2 of the Pinwheel. It is the Blazer Podcast. I am doing this solo tonight as, unfortunately, Doug has there's a little bit of family health problems. His girlfriend's mom is sick, so I told him we just decided, it's better for him to stay with family and that kind of stuff. So I figured I'd at least give you guys some content and talk about the Blazers in the meantime, and Doug will just join back in for episode 3 next week. So the games that we're covering tonight or this morning or whenever you're listening is going to be the 3 games that happened between now and then. So the Dallas game, the San Antonio game, and the OKC game. All 3 away games for the Blazers. We opened up with our season opener, and then the next 4 games was a road trip. So a little tough for our opening schedule, especially considering we lost to Denver opening night in the Moda Center. That's the first time we've lost a home opener for like 19 years. Pretty crazy stuff. But if we jump into the Dallas game, just looking at the stat sheet, Damian plays really well again in 38 minutes. That's the one key thing that I can say about Damian and CJ is they play a bunch of minutes. CJ played 40. Damian played 38. There's only 48 minutes in a game, so they're playing a high number of those. But CJ goes for 35 and Damian goes for 28, so together they combine for 53 points. They actually shoot really well. Not quite 50%, but very, very close. I believe Dame actually they both shoot 50%. Dame shoots 10 for 20 and CJ shoots 13 for 26. That's not so bad, but and I should mention that they both only had 2 turnovers. So for 40 and 38 minute game for those 2 guys to only turn the ball over twice is really, really nice. Hassan Whiteside plays 25 minutes. He doesn't shoot the ball particularly like a lot of times, but he shot 50%. And he continues to knock down free throws. One thing that I can say is Damian and CJ both have missed free throws early on this season. They're both shooting at a high percentage still, like 85, 90%, somewhere around that range. But they have missed 1, 2, so where they go, 80%, 70%. Typically, both of those guys get on pretty long streaks of not missing any. Hassan grabs 14 total boards, 2 of those offensive. We had 7 offensive rebounds compared to Dallas's 12. So we let them take a couple back, but the reason being is because of how many 3-point shots they attempted. They shot 13 for 50. Dallas did 13 for 50. They shot 26%. That's why they lose. They just shot poorly, but it was still close. They just had long shots, long rebounds. Therefore, they grabbed a lot of offensive rebounds. I like this game. The only problem with it was Zach Collins dislocates his left shoulder. It relocates very easily, but unfortunately, news came out today that he will undergo surgery for his left shoulder, so he'll be out for a little bit now. There's no timetable on Yusuf Nurkic or on Zach Collins, so not sure exactly what's going to happen with the Portland roster in terms of will we try and bring somebody up? Will we try and trade early for like an Andre Iguodala, someone like that? Just because right now we have, Anthony Tolliver and Scal as like our bigs, and then Mario is moving into the power forward slot. In terms of players that I was been impressed with, Rodney Hood has played really well for us. I know he shot the ball decently well. He's playing pretty good defense, not turning the ball over all too often. Been happy with him. I would still say Anthony Tolliver is one of the guys that I am still most skeptical about. At times he seems like he plays great defense. Other times it seems like people can blow right by him. Maybe it's just the conditioning. It's only game 3 when we're talking about this Dallas game, to where he could just need to get back into the rhythm of the NBA season, which I think makes sense. And I think we've seen that a lot with the Blazers season. even up into Game 5 with, going to the OKC game. It just seems like because we have such a new group and of players, our roster is almost completely different with only a few remaining. Really very many in terms like Anthony Simons and Gary Trent Jr. rarely played, if anything. Scal barely played as well. Dame, CJ, and Rodney and Zach are the only ones really returning right now. Kent Bazemore starts to play more. Mario plays more as we've made trades for them and all those kinds of things. I still like our squad. I think we can do pretty well. Remember, we lost against Denver. We beat the Kings, and on our first road game, we beat Dallas. This was a tough game, though. It was real close. Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are a really good duo. They are. They're playing really well. They're taking teams into overtime. Really close. I think Dallas is a team that's going to be decently surprising throughout the season. However, the standings are weird right now in the NBA. I think because they've spread around so much talent. Broken up super teams that we've seen, 1, 2 to 3 main pieces of a team be there on several different teams, so that the getting to the playoffs is going to be much harder. And I mostly think the West is what's going, is going to kill it. And the East isn't as strong, but even on the East side of things, it's the standings are close. There's only one team that's still left undefeated. That is the 76ers. So, which, by the way, Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns get into a little bit of a scuffle, and both of them get suspended for 2 games. I do think that it's really strange. And I would love to know, I guess I should have looked into this a little bit more, but Ayton on the Suns, he got suspended for like 25 games or something like that. Let me look it up to make sure that it's DeAndre Ayton. He gets suspended for, I think it was for 25 games. Yeah, 25 game suspensions for a diuretic. Now, I don't know exactly why he was taking this or why the NBA has it being illegal. I'd have to look into it because I don't really know what's classified as that. But 25 games seems like a lot compared to Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns literally fist fighting, which, if anybody's familiar with the Pistons and Indiana Pacers brawl, it was really bad look for the NBA, and I know that they don't want to see repeats of that. So I'm surprised that they only gave him a 2-game suspension. The other thing that surprised me was Ben Simmons jumped on Karl Anthony Towns' back and was basically, it looked like he was choking him, but I guess they said that he was, was just holding him down so that the fight didn't escalate. I don't know. That seems silly. I think Ben Simmons should have been suspended for a game, maybe 2. If that's the baseline that they're using. But let's see if there's anything else. The Blazers shot not too many 3-pointers in the Dallas game. We shot 22 and we made 11 of them. We made 23 free throws of the 28 we shot. So 82%. I feel like 82% is a hard number to be upset about. In terms, you can't really be mad at 82% free throw shooting. I think that you can strive for, 85, 90%. I think that that's a totally fair thing to strive for. Just because obviously free throws, with how tight the season's going to be for the Western Conference, free throws and all the games are most likely going to be very close. You're not going to see a lot of blowouts. We just need to make sure that we're hitting those free throws so that when it does get down to the close games, we're good to go. Let me see here. I wanted to look and tell you guys exactly what the score was for this game. This is doing... Sorry. Well, I'll look it up as we go. The next game that we're covering is the game of San Antonio, which was a heartbreaker. We came out Man, we came out super hot. We went up like 19 points. It was great. We were playing really well, but like I said, in the NBA, if that's, you can come out hot, but the basketball is a game of streaks, and in the NBA, there's just so much talent that it's nearly impossible to hold that the whole time. We see that a lot. The score was 121 to 119, so as you can see, it went down to the wire, and Dame hit a go-ahead field goal. So then we go, and this was the second of a back-to-back going into San Antonio. So it was really nice to see Portland jump off to a streak, to a hot streak and go up 19. However, like I said, it's a game of runs. San Antonio fights their way back and actually at one point goes up 19 themselves. So it's a 38-point swing, which is crazy. That's more crazy to see happen. Usually they can fight their way back by the end of the third, fourth quarter, and then it's a close game. But instead, San Antonio found their way back in the early third, and then pushed ahead. And then Dame came alive. And, he was huge. I think he scored I think it was 16 or 18 points for Portland. Ended up having 28 points there. Absolutely massive game. Unfortunately, we do lose. He had a great look at the end of the game in the corner for a three. It was halfway, 3/4 of the way down, bounced and rimmed out. So it was a bummer. I think Portland fans have grown accustomed to Damian hitting those big shots that when we see that it's that close, it's just it's heartbreaking. But here's another thing. Let's see. In this game, we shoot a little bit more three-pointers, so we go 10 for 33, so we shoot 30%. If you remember, in the Dallas game, we shot 11 for 22, so we shot 50%, but we still made around 10 to 11. That might be something to look out for to see how many threes we're putting away. In the San Antonio game, again, CJ and Dame have heavy minutes on them. 37 for CJ, 38 for Damian, 27 and 28 points respectively, so 55 points combined. They turn the ball over not too often again, which is nice to see that when they have the ball in their hands, which is the majority of the game based off the minutes that they're playing, they're not turning the ball over. I think Dame has one and CJ has won that game. Let me look. I have it right here. 1-1, which is not bad. And they have 7. Damian has 7 assists, and CJ has 5. Dame has 9 rebounds. So he's on triple-double opportunity there. He played really well. Everybody else on the squad didn't play amazing. Rodney Hood 3 for 7. Scal was 4 for 5, so he shot well. He had 10 points. But no one else played super well. Again, for this game, which is the first game, we don't have Zach Collins, so now we're down another player. Anthony Tolliver starts in his spot. And the hardest part was, so the Spurs don't shoot a lot of threes. They shot 22, so 11 less than us, but in terms of their normal scheme, they don't shoot a lot of threes. They have a couple players who can really shoot well. Patty Mills is one of them who shot 50% that night. But they had DeMar DeRozan, Derek White, and LaMarcus. They all played really well. Brian Forbes played well. Patty Mills, again, played well. So Rudy Gay didn't play too much, but what they're really good at is their mid-range, and they drive to the basket hard. And because they have Rudy Gay, Derek White, DeMar DeRozan, these guys are really, really fast and really athletic to where they bring the power forward to the center who's down there to collapse, leaving their man open. Usually there's a nice dump off there. They had 25 assists compared to the Blazers' 19. That's something that the Blazers, I think, really need to get better at, is swinging the ball. We look really, really good when we swing the ball. And there's a couple players on our team who just aren't they're not bad, but they're not as capable like Dame and CJ and creating their own shots. So when Damian and CJ are kind of not in the offensive play to facilitate, Rodney and Kent aren't super good off the dribble. Mario drives pretty well. Anthony drives pretty well, but they still have some improvement there where if they swung the ball a little bit more, I think we would have, obviously, we have a higher chance of more open shots with swinging the ball, keeping the defense on their toes, moving it around. But also, people usually shoot a lot better when they're coming into a shot on the pass instead of onto the dribble. So I would like to see that happen more. I would like the Blazers to be at 25-ish assists a game. I think that would be really good for us. But this was another, it's another close game, and it's so difficult and it's so competitive in the Western Conference that a lot of your games are going to end this way, and then it will also be that way when you're playing against players and teams in the East who are on the upper echelon of that conference. So Brooklyn, the 76ers, Boston. I feel like I'm missing one there. Toronto, obviously. I still feel like I'm missing one other team who's pretty good. I mean, obviously it's the NBA, but when you look at the West, there's just so many teams. You just don't know how it's going to. I mean, even last season ended with like the 2 through 8 seed being 4 games apart. Like, it just slightly different. If you lose one game, you could have been down to the 8th seed and it could have re-scrambled the whole playoff scene. So look for it to be pretty intense. Now, the bummer part is we lose Zach Collins, but so he's out for a little bit. And then when we go and talk about the OKC game, unfortunately, Hassan Whiteside hyperextends his knee, and he came and returned back to the game and played, but he did sit out tonight's game when the Portland Trailblazers played against the Philadelphia 76ers. Doug and I will talk about that next week, that game, and what happened there. But that does some injury reports. And around the league, KD says he will not be back. He's not even trying to come back this season. He's done, which I agree with. I don't think he should try and come back. I think the Achilles injury is definitely very hard. And if what they were saying was true and it was actually a calf injury before it was the Achilles injury, then he might be dealing with 2. Most likely it was. I think everybody knew that it was the Achilles injury, so I think that's really what it was. But you just never know, I suppose. So he is waiting. Klay Thompson, they were thinking about coming back around the All-Star break, but here's where tragedy strikes the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry breaks his hand. He's out. He has to have surgery on his hand, so he's out for like 3 months. Draymond Green is now out for a finger injury. Something happened, broken finger or some shit like that. So now, they lose DeMarcus Cousins and they move Kevin Durant. They lose both of those players in the offseason. Klay Thompson gets hurt during the playoffs. Now Steph Curry and Draymond, so they're ass. Like, they're going to be fucking terrible now. That's not to say they won't win any games, but they're just missing every key piece that they had, and it's really, I hate that it is injury-ridden. I hate that's what caused it, but it's really hilarious to see the empire of the Golden State Warriors fall, considering their lineups for the last few years, they've just been so fucking spoiled, and you could see how big of bitches they were when they were playing this year, even with Steph Curry and all them. Like, they just have been so spoiled by the teams that they've had that you could just see how they weren't having fun, because they had 6 to 7 all-stars on their roster and 5 of them in the starting lineup, and they were the only team really to do that. And that's not to say they weren't still competitive and losing games. They had a better season before KD even joined them, but they just it's just funny to watch the empire fall, and I have not seen anybody repping any Golden State Warriors stuff, which is funny to see. I'm not a huge believer in bandwagon fans. However, I do think that obviously when a team is playing well, it brings them on the map, and the casual fan is obviously going to like them because they're not super into a team. So I think it's more casual fan rather than bandwagon fan. Now, everybody knows this. When your team's playing like shit and they're ass and there's nothing to celebrate, you don't really talk to anybody about it because you're just going to get shut down by the teams that are playing really well and called out for it. So there were definitely years where I wasn't super vocal about the Blazers because they were terrible. They were ass. I'm not going to talk about how bad they are. I'd rather not talk about anything at all. So as the Golden State Warriors season tanks, I'm sure less and less Golden State fans will be talking. So we'll move on to the OKC game. A little bit of a flashback to the season playoffs first series, I should say. It was a good game, man. It was a really good game. We played really well, which was fun to watch. There's still obviously going to be some things to clean up, but this is the last of our home game. I think that we played pretty well. Obviously, it was a close game, and we could have played better. We just turned the ball over a lot. We turned the ball over, 17 times. It's just too much. We need to be around the 10 to 12. I think that will really help. However, we did force OKC to turn the ball over 18 times. We just didn't capitalize on that. We didn't turn those turnovers into points. So it was really, really tough to do for us for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. I think that we I think it's just stagnation. If you look at our assists, we only had 19 again. I think we need to get up to the 25 range. It's a lot of dribble, shoot. We didn't shoot the ball particularly well. Damian goes 7 for 19. CJ goes 7 for 22. And CJ has a terrible game. He turns the ball over 7 times. He seemed really lethargic. He seemed kind of out of it. Every time something would happen, he would act like, what the fuck, how'd that happen? Which was a little bit, it was funny because while Doug and I were talking about it, Doug's not he doesn't hate on CJ too much, but I think there's parts of it that's hard for him because we already have the guard in Damian, so we need a different piece. And we have the center in Yusuf, so I think he would like to have somebody who is more of a small forward, power forward, superstar or star rather than having 2 guards. However, we do have there's great parts of it, but while we were having the conversation, I'm trying to back up CJ, and I just can't do it because he's turning the ball over 7 times. He's only 31% from the field. However, he does shoot 50% from 3-point, going 5 for 10, which isn't bad. Dame shoots 4 for 9. So I think it's just difficulty of shot. Dame was getting blocked a lot. They just had pretty big guys. There's, or I shouldn't say blocked, maybe stolen from, hit, deflected. Wasn't always blocks. Hassan Whiteside, again, like I said, he hyperextends his knee. He comes out of the game, then comes back in and plays, and he did decently well. He shot 4 for 9, so almost 50%, 4 for 6 from the free throw line. Had 12 points and 12 rebounds, so he's definitely a double-double machine. Anthony Tolliver, Rodney Hood, those 2 guys Anthony needs to pick it up for sure. Playing a little bit better defense, especially if his shot's not there. Rodney, 3 for 10, didn't hit too many shots. Kent Bazemore came alive in terms of points, but he does have 5 fouls, so he's got to stay out of foul trouble. CJ McCollum had 5 as well. This is what I mean by they're just playing really, really lethargic. Kind of just, it seemed like going through the motions, doing those kinds of things. We do come out with the win, however, so we beat OKC, we beat Dallas, and we beat the Kings on our first road trip. So we go 3-1, so 3-2 as of today before we play the 76ers, which we'll discuss that game next week. Let's look at a couple things Trailblazer-wise, because we can look at some stats and see what's going on with these guys. If we go ahead and look at Damian, the leader of the squad right now and forever. Hopefully he never leaves. I love Damian. He's so much fun to watch. I think he's constantly slept on in terms. I think people know that he's obviously a great player. I think they just underrate him, and I think mostly because of size, but he can just do so much. This season, he is shooting 47% from the field. He's shooting 40% from three-pointers and 88% from the free throw line. Now, 88.9% is his career, so he's his career for free throw percentage. So he's shooting just 0.3% below, so he's staying on target. But like I said, usually he starts off pretty hot. He's averaging 29.8 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, and 7.8 assists. Now, obviously, it's only been through 6 games in terms of what stat line I'm reading now, but it's just that's a really good stat line. If he can keep up the field goal percentage and the three-point percentage in these numbers, we're going to be in really good shape. Now, it's just making sure that the surrounding players are adding something to the table because as soon as that starts, if he's the only one who's hitting, that's going to be the scouting report. That's how they're going to guard it. And that's kind of how the Pelicans just ran through us that year in the playoffs when we got swept. It was because they knew that CJ and Dame were kind of the only two guys who were doing anything. And because they shut them down, they were forcing the other players to make shots and make, plays, and they couldn't do it. So we just need to make sure, and I think that's, even though Dame is averaging a good assists per game, the team as a whole isn't. I think we could do a little bit of a better job there. CJ McCollum is the next guy we'll take a look at. And we'll talk about some standings, and we'll wrap it up. I know this is going to be a short one, guys, because it is just me. So I want to give you guys a little bit of my opinion and what's going on in terms of recaps if you guys didn't have the chance to watch it. But obviously there's no one here for me to bounce conversation off of. So it's a little bit harder to keep anything running. So I just want to give you guys my quick opinions, and that's how we'll do it. On the season, CJ's shooting 40% from the field, 37% from threes, 91% from the free throw line, and he is averaging 21 points a game. Now, as of right now, he is averaging 4 more points per game than his career. A little bit more assists and a little bit more rebounds, but not by much, by a couple decimals. So he is shooting worse in terms of percentage, but I think that we will see, more output from CJ as he settles into the season. He's always kind of been a second half player anyway. So we'll see what happens. He is playing more minutes, which means he's taking more shots, which means most likely he's going to be making more points. Can't really complain about the 91% from the free throw line. It's just, I was talking with Jesse about this because in terms of our percentages and how if your team is shooting 82 to 90% from the free throw line, you can't really be too upset about it, because you can't really expect, you can strive for more than that, but that's a pretty good free throw shooting team. I mean, that's a really good free throw shooting team if you're at the upper 80%. You just got to make sure that you're not turning the ball over in that case if you're still having close games, because if you're knocking down your free throws, then it comes down to possessions, and if the other team has more possessions than you do, going to be a little bit rough to win games, especially if you're not shooting well. And we haven't shot overly well. Our points per game right now is 113.8, but we're allowing 113.3. So all of our games are really, really close. We need to do better at that. So those are kind of our main players that I wanted to talk about. There's a couple other people like Kent, who I think needs to stay out of foul trouble, but he's been knocking down jumpers. He's shooting really well. We'll take a look at Kent's percentages here just real quick. We won't talk about much more than that. He's shooting 37.5% from three-point, 37.8% from field goal, and 61.5%. So that's kind of where I mean some things are being dragged down. He'll need to pick that up. We are playing him more minutes, so hopefully he just gets into the swing of our rotations and whatnot. But he's a guard/forward, so shooting guard, small forward position. He needs to pick it up in the free throw range there. If we look at the standings, and we'll talk about it as of tonight because it's just I'm not going to talk about it from tomorrow because I don't have those stats. In the Eastern Conference, it goes the 76ers, Miami, Boston, Milwaukee, Toronto, Charlotte Hornets, Detroit Pistons, and Cleveland. So if the playoffs started now, that would be their 8. Underneath Cleveland at 9 is Indiana Pacers and the Atlanta Hawks, Orlando Magic, Brooklyn Nets, Chicago Bulls, Washington Wizards, and the New York Knicks. I don't think that surprises anyone that Washington and the New York Knicks are in the bottom 2. I think it does surprise me a little bit that Brooklyn's so far down. Chicago, Orlando, Atlanta, and Indiana are that's kind of where they're, kind of been at for the last couple seasons. Indiana usually plays a little bit better in the later half of the season, at least if I remember correctly. I am excited to see what happens with Atlanta because I would like to see them in the playoffs because I like Trae Young. I would laugh hysterically if Brooklyn doesn't make it into the playoffs. I think that would be really funny to see Kyrie, bouncing from team to team. And then not do well because there wasn't too many seasons in Boston where he was doing really well. It's cool to see Miami do well because Myers Leonard went over there, so that's fun to see that he's doing well. I know that he's starting for them, which is really nice to see. I hope he is loving it over there. In the Western Conference right now, we have Los Angeles Lakers, San Antonio Spurs, Minnesota Timberwolves, Utah, Denver, Phoenix, the Clippers, and Houston in the top 8 spots. Now, obviously, it's only been a few games, so every team is within, half a game, one game, 1.5 games. So on all sides. Now, when you get down into the lower spectrum of the teams, they're not doing too hot. Underneath the Rockets in the 9th seed is Dallas Mavericks and Portland, OKC, Memphis, Golden State, New Orleans Pelicans, and the Sacramento Kings. Sacramento has lost all but one game, and although their games have been, I believe, decently close, they were close with the Blazers. The Pelicans have played pretty well too. Again, close games, not really getting blown out. The Golden State Warriors, I think we're going to see a huge dump from them because they're just they have no moves that they can make. They have D'Angelo Russell, obviously. I just don't think that with the talent that they have around that with Steph Curry and Draymond Green being out, I can't see them doing too well. Memphis, I think we all thought was going to do bad. I think OKC is going to do bad. So I think those bottom 5 teams, OKC, Memphis, Golden State, New Orleans, and the Kings, I think they'll stay down there. Now, one of the surprises of this season has been the Phoenix Suns, man. They're 4-2. They're without DeAndre Ayton. It's been very surprising and cool to see them go. I think what's really helped them, without looking too much into the team or the statistics of the team, I think having Ricky Rubio there, having him being able to facilitate the offense and having Devin Booker be able to, play off guard and not have to have the ball in his hands all the time. Sure, he has it in his hands a bunch of the time because of the type of caliber of player he is. But just to have that option. Denver is playing well. Utah's playing really well. I think Minnesota is a surprise for playing super well. San Antonio always has a great program. I don't necessarily know where they're going to end up. But here's the thing. So you have, obviously, again, it's only been 5-6 games for a couple teams, but all the teams are 4-1, and so from the 8th seed it's 4-1, 4-1, 4-1, and then for the next 4 seeds it's 4-2, and then 3-2, 3-2 as it goes forward. A lot of teams have winning records. If you look in the top 8 seed for the Eastern Conference and even the 7th seed, we start to see losing records. So we don't start to see losing records in the West until the 11th seed. It's still really early. We know this, but that's just kind of I think that's what we're going to see as we move forward. Those numbers are just going to get wider and wider apart. I'll take a look at league leaders here. To tell you where a couple of our players rank. I know, if I remember correctly, Damian is going to be in the top couple here for the points per game. He's up at number 3 with 29.8. The only 2 players that he's behind is Kyrie Irving at 30.5 and James Harden at 36.6. A couple other players like Kawhi Leonard and Anthony Davis are very close to him, just off percentage points or decimal points. Hassan Whiteside's in the top 5 for the league in rebounds per game, which I love to see. I know assists, Dame's not all the way up there, but I believe he's in the top 20-ish. Assists are one of those ones that when it breaks down, he's in top 8. Really good. I love that. If you can say in top 5 for points and top 10 for assists, I would love that. I think you can't really ask too much more than that. Myers Leonard is number 1 for 3-point percentage this year. Holy shit. That is super cool. I wonder how many threes he's taken. Let's take a look. He has taken a total of... That's not necessarily how I'd like to see those stats. but he's shooting about 2 a game. And he's making one a game, so he's shooting 1.4 out of 2.2, so 63.6%. I just like seeing it. He is 6.6 rebounds a game. Will be cool to see Myers have a good breakout year. That'd be really awesome. Let's see who else. I wanted to see turnovers per game, but it doesn't look like those are listed here right now. Bummer. Well, other than that, the games that we're going to be covering coming up, we have a bunch actually, which is really cool. I believe there's going to be 4 games that Dougie and I will be talking about next week, next Sunday. Let me take a look if I remember. I know it's the 76ers, Golden State Clippers, and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, we came home today and played the 76ers here on Saturday, which is the night that I'm recording this. And then our next 2 games, we're going back on the road. So won't have a chance to get our first home win until we are back when we're playing Brooklyn on, I believe it is Friday. We play the Clippers in LA, and then we have to fly home, second back-to-back, play Brooklyn at home. So a little bit tough. I would rather see us beat the Clippers just because. I think that does better for our team morale to see us beat one of those teams. I think in the next coming games, we're going to see a couple teams fall apart. Like I said, I think we'll see Golden State fall apart. The other team that's doing pretty well that I think is going to kind of go down the shitter is going to be Phoenix. I think they'll not do so well just based off of last couple seasons. Portland, I think, with the next 4 games with the 76ers, which we played tonight, and then the next 3 after that, we do have a tougher schedule. I think we should be able to pull out the win with Golden State, and then I'm hoping with Brooklyn. I think the LA Clippers game is going to be a little bit tough. But let me look at their schedule because I know Kawhi Leonard is not playing in any back-to-backs. When do we play these guys? So they play, when was this game? Yes, so Kawhi might not play because he's going to play most likely against the Bucks, and then he won't play against us because I don't think he's playing the second of a back-to-back at all this entire season, so he's going to miss like 26 games. Interesting strategy. I know that there's a lot of speculation as to what it would have been like if Derrick Rose had load management. I think that's a very compelling or cool argument to make in terms of it. Could the duration of, the players' careers be longer, or would they have not sustained the injuries that they did sustain if they had load management to be able to take off a couple games here and there? I think it might have helped. I think the Derrick Rose in particular has blown out his knees so many times that it probably would have just prolonged it. Maybe got a couple of those out, which is, quite a big deal. But I think that wraps it up. That's about 40 minutes of me talking to you guys by myself, and I think that should suffice. If you guys have any questions or, like I said, segments that you guys would like to see about the Blazers, whether that be we, dial in on one player a week of our starting rotation. If you want us to talk more about other teams or just around the league, injury reports, talk about some other games, highlight something like that. I think we will probably do that anyway, but if you wanted to see it more structured, let me know. Any feedback is awesome. Make sure to follow us at Neighbor Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Remember, JB Monday comes out tomorrow, so make sure to check that out. I will be announcing our next guest on that episode, so stay tuned for that. Then on Thursday, Survivor Season 6 breakdown, or Season 39 breakdown, episode number 6 will be out on Thursday. No new special. We might do a special for like Thanksgiving or something, but we'll probably have that be a common theme for the month of November, just saying something that we're thankful for. And then Friday, you guys will have that guest episode, and the guest will be announced tomorrow. Much love. Thank you guys so much for listening to me talk to myself. I love talking about the Blazers, even when it is to myself. So much love to you guys. Everybody have a great Sunday. spend some time with some family, be safe, and we will see you on Monday. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.